Thank you for listening to Soho Bites, the only podcast in the world, as far as we're aware, dedicated to talking about films set in Soho, the beating heart of bohemian cosmopolitan London. If you would like to support the show, you can do this in the form of a star rating or review at sohobitespodcast.com/review, or if you'd like to put a small amount of money where your mouth is, you can do that at sohobitespodcast.com/donate. Donations can be from as little as £3, which will buy, at London prices, about half a drink for one of our thirsty guests. You may hear some different URLs in the upcoming episode, but by far the easiest way is to follow one of those links. They are again sohobitespodcast.com/review and sohobitespodcast.com/donate. Thank you for your continued support and enjoy the episode.
Now I shall go and see if there are any more of those delicious zombies.
Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Soho Bites. Soho Bites is the podcast in which we talk about Soho and the films that are set there. My name is Dominic Delarkey, and do you know what? I do like to stroll along the prom where the brass band plays Tiddly on Pom Pom. This is something of a summer seaside special. I'm shaking things up a little bit in this episode. And how am I doing that? Well, a few weeks ago I put some trousers on, I got on a train, and I left London, which is not something I do very often. The train bit, I mean, not the trousers. I often put trousers on. A few weeks ago I got myself to Fenchurch Street Station and thence to Southend-on-Sea to attend the Southend Film Festival, where I met a genuine national treasure and attended a screening of this month's film. That national treasure was Noel Cronin, the man behind everybody's favourite TV channel, Talking Pictures TV, and that film was one that had been unavailable to see anywhere until Noel recently rescued it from obscurity and showed it on Talking Pictures, A Taste of Money from 1960. The film was produced by the renowned Danzigers, a pair of enterprising brothers from New York who came to the UK in the 1950s and made a lot of films and TV series, whatever. They were known, perhaps even notorious, for working with very tight budgets, but managed to produce a wealth of decent, if not exactly awe-inspiring films and telly. A Taste of Money was directed by Max Varnell and stars 75-year-old Jean Cadell, a well-known stage actress of her day and grandmother of Simon and Selena, as Miss Brill, a dear, sweet little old lady with some hidden criminal tendencies. After some drunken shenanigans in a disreputable Soho dive bar, is there any other type? Miss Brill teams up with a fiendish crook known as Frank Fingernails Morrissey, played by Dick Emery, to carry out a daring robbery. After the screening of A Taste of Money at Southend's Palace Hotel, there was a special event, an audience with Noel Cronin, at which he took questions from the audience and spoke about his life and career. After that, I bundled him off to a side room to talk about the film, the Danziger Brothers and Talking Pictures TV. I had hoped to make the conversation with Noel a three-way and invited Dick Emery's son, Nick Emery, to join us down the line. Alas, Nick was tied up doing some voice work, so was unable to attend, but I did manage to get together with him online a week or so later to talk about his father and his legacy. That conversation with Nick is in the second half of the show, but before that, come with me on a train to the English seaside.
Upminster, West Horndon, Langton, Basildon, Pitsea, Benfleet, Leigh-on-Sea, Chalkwell, Westcliff, Southend Central.
That's where we're going, Southend Central. Let's go. The Southend-on-Sea Film Festival is an annual event which has been running in that seaside town since 2009. It's the brainchild of Paul Cotgrove, who runs The White Bus, a Southend-based film production company. The programme each year is a real mixed bag. New independent films, world cinema, documentaries, classic movies, and a strong emphasis on local filmmaking. We were there, of course, for the newly restored A Taste of Money, and it was, I believe, the first big screen showing of the film.
Good afternoon everyone, welcome to the 18th Southend-on-Sea Film Festival.
The title of the film is obviously a nod to the highly successful stage play A Taste of Honey. I say stage play rather than film because the famous film of A Taste of Honey was actually released in 1961, a year later than A Taste of Money. Keep up. It's a film that had been on my radar for a few years, but the only way of seeing it until then was to book a screening room at the BFI and watch a 35mm print there, because it just wasn't available on DVD or any other format, and as far as I know, had never even been on the telly box. So, imagine my surprise when I saw that it was popping up on Talking Pictures TV. Imagine my further surprise when I realised that it had been released on DVD, and imagine my further surprise when I saw that it was about to be screened at the Southend Film Festival. This is all thanks, of course, to my first guest, Noel Cronin. After the film and Noel's audience session, we sat down in a side room at the Palace Hotel, where we had an excellent view of the seafront, to talk about 1960s A Taste of Money. Noel, thank you very much for coming on Soho Bites podcast. It's very kind of you. We're here in Southend. We've just watched a screening of A Taste of Money, which you introduced, and I very much enjoyed it again. I watched it for the third time. This is my third watching of it. I looked into doing A Taste of Money on Soho Bites about 5 years ago. I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find a DVD or VHS. It wasn't on TV. And then it crops up on Talking Pictures TV. How did that come about? Were you ferreting around in your shed and
No,
discovered it?
we actually bought the Danziger Library.
Okay.
So we own the film and the series from the Danzigers.
Is this a recent acquisition?
Well, we bought the library about 8, 9, 10 months ago.
Okay. And when you say bought the library, does that mean you physically acquire the tapes? Or
Correct.
Do you then restore it before you transfer it to DVD?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that process work? I mean, this could get cut out for nerdiness, but how does that actually...
It really depends what the quality is, what problems you have. Now, interestingly, on this series, The Vice, they appear to have been shot 35mm, which is so unusual for a TV series of that age. So the quality is pretty good, other than there's some inherent things just with age, like almost like mould on some of the negatives, but we can clean that.
And what made you choose this particular film? Was it just, are you just putting them all out there, all the Danziger films that you recently acquired, or?
Well, in a simple word, yes. I mean, there's some of the films are really quite good and some are really not very good. So obviously we'd like to play the ones that are better at a better slot and see how they do.
Yeah?
I want a table, please.
But this isn't a cafeteria, lady.
I know.
No, but I mean, you've got a drink here. This isn't an old ladies' knitting circle.
I don't know how to knit, but I'm quite prepared to drink. Excuse me.
A while ago, Renown put out a DVD box set of E.J. Fancy films, and we did do an episode on E.J. Fancy, and he is several rungs below the Danzigers. I mean, it was a truly terrible film. Good episode, actually, Soho Conspiracy. But the Danzigers, they had a particular working model, didn't they, which was...
Well, I think the Danziger, for their time, are excellent. I think that they're well scripted. They use good young technicians at the time. They've used a mixture of old and up-and-coming actors. You'll find all sorts of actors in there, even a Michael Caine in an earlier episode. So I think the formula that Danziger had was excellent for really very low-budget productions, but they just knew how to wring out every cent in every dollar.
So they're American, they're New York based originally, aren't they? And they came over to the UK. Did they come over in order to take on the British film industry, or did they just kind of wander over? Do you know anything about that?
The simple answer is I don't know. I mean, whether they were caught up into any of the McCarthyism or anything like that.
It's that era, isn't it? Yeah.
It's that era. I fear they probably were. They were a couple of entrepreneurial Jewish boys, very clever at what they did, opened hotels and all sorts of things that, needed that American razzmatazz to do. They obviously identified in the early television there were screen time to fill. So they set about making series like The Vice, like Mark Saber, Richard the Lionheart, The Cheaters, that were there to fill the TV. They'd obviously taken a leaf out of people like the Robin Hood producers and things like yeah. These series were just going by the yard, but they had to be to a certain quality. And I think they were successful in that.
So about what proportion of their output was film and what was TV? Do you have a sense of that? I get a sense it's more TV than film.
Well, I did have a theory about The Vice, the fact it was on 35mm. Were they hoping to get these into the cinema? Did they? I don't know. I don't think they did. But the fact they shot on 35mm suggests to me that they had some eye on getting them into cinema as shorts.
Because A Taste of Money, when I first watched it, it struck me that it didn't actually look like a Danziger production particularly. I think partly because it's colour, that does make a difference. Did you think it did have a higher budget than normal? Have they chucked a bit of money at it this time?
I would say they probably did have a slightly higher budget on that one. The techniques are still the same, but I think there are more locations in it. Or, they've used the locations more often than they usually do. The Danzigers were very adept at having some footage, and that would appear maybe in 2 or 3 different named series, the same footage.
There's a very funny moment in A Taste of Money when a lady on the boat says, "Miss Brill, wake up. You can see the New York skyline." It cuts to it, and it's like right there. It's like it's shot from the harbour. You would have been able to see it for about 4 hours before then. So Jean Cadell is the star of the film, really, and an accomplished theatre actor, been around for many, many years. You mentioned before that they had a whole kind of range of actors in their films. Was she a sort of typical sort of actor to have in the film? Because she seems, no. I was quite surprised to see her in it.
No, she'd be, use the term upmarket. She'd certainly be probably slightly higher than they'd normally pay, and certainly more experienced than their usual actor. That's not to say they didn't have other, actors that had done quite a bit of mileage. And she was very good in the part. So somebody had actually gone out there and thought, who would be good for this lady would be Jean Cadell. I can't believe they would have paid her a fortune. It wasn't in their psyche. But I would have thought that maybe it appealed to her. She was perhaps, not doing very much at the time. A combination of any sorts of things, as actors do.
Yeah, a job's a job.
Yeah, they like the script. They say, yeah, why not? And a job is a job.
Do you like her in it? Do you like the film, by the way, generally?
I very much like the film. It reminds me of another black and white film we play called Who Killed the Cat.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, you should watch it. It's on us quite a lot, and it's very good. Again, old ladies, central characters, slightly mischievous, but very good. I think Jean was superb in it.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello, Miss Brill. You remember us?
Yes, the gentleman from the Businessmen's Club. I'm very glad to see you. I needn't bother to ask how you got in.
We didn't damage the lock.
Most efficient of you.
We were also efficient in checking your story. You are chief cashier at that insurance company, aren't you?
I make it a policy never to tell lies to strangers, only to friends.
From now on, we're your friends.
How nice.
When I've been reading around the film a bit, it often says, a kind of a take on the lady killers. I was thinking about the way the Danzigers operated. They seem to have a kind of, an in-house team, same director, same house, everything. And comparing that to Ealing, who made the Lady Killers, obviously, they seem to work in a similar way. That a little sort of cottage industry almost. Is that the way they worked? Were they so people were on the payroll all the time?
Certainly, they were either on the payroll at scale, or they knew that there was always work for them at Danziger's. There's nothing particularly unique about that. If you look at Robin Hood and all those, you'll find a lot of the same credits. You'll often see an actor in 3 parts in an episode,
Yeah.
3 different parts.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Did your dad ever work at the Danziger Studios?
He did indeed.
Did he?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do you know what films he might have worked on, or?
I don't know. It would be nothing memorable because they didn't make anything memorable. But no, he worked on various things. He worked on the Cruel Sea, Guns of Navarone. He was only a spark. I'm not going to tell you he was the DOP or anything, but, he enjoyed it.
Nice, well, interesting work.
Yeah.
So looking at the cast, Jean Cadell obviously at the end of her career, and quite a draw, do you think, to audiences, or?
Well, I confess, I don't know if the film ever played theatrically.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I would have thought that at the time it would have been too small for a theatrical release. I would have thought. It's got the feeling of it was made for television to me, but who knows? Who knows with the Danzigers? Were they trying to, get into an American market with it, English slant on it, something like that. Who knows?
The film we talked about a couple of episodes ago was King of the Underworld, starring Todd Slaughter. And this reminded me of that in a way, in more to the business side of it, because they made that as a TV series. It's one of your DVDs anyway.
Yeah.
They made that as a TV series, and it didn't work as a TV. I mean, they just couldn't flog it, So they bodged it together into a film and released it as a film. You have a background in distribution. In those days, in the 1950s, I thought there was basically just the BBC and ITV, and they made everything in-house. But seemingly, that's if the Danzigers were making stuff as like what we now call an independent production house, were they kind of being commissioned by the broadcasters? Because I can't remember the company behind Ambassador made King of the Underworld. They basically made it, but didn't have a commissioning deal in place.
In all distribution, it really depends. I would find it hard to believe that they would have made a series on spec. If you think Sapphire Films that made all the Robin Hoods and all those things that in early days, they obviously had the nod from somebody, ITV or BBC, or I think it was ITV, wasn't it? They had a real need for this type of program. So I would think it would be one of those situations where it was a sort of a pre-sale. If you had so-and-so, we would take it and we'd pay you this.
A deal done over a lunchtime bottle of wine.
Yeah,
kind of
maybe.
thing.
But, there were so many series, if you look at them all that they made, Sapphires, this is, that you'd say, well, there must have been a real understanding. You don't make that depth of programming over a bottle of wine.
Yeah. And the other well-known person in the cast, well, there's a few, but the main one is Dick Emery. And he wasn't a major star at this stage, was he? But he was kind of on the cusp.
He was on the cusp, yeah. I don't know that he had any earlier feature appearances, maybe 1 or 2, but and of course he was playing a straight man in the film.
Quite unusual to us now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I have to do some research, but I would doubt he has done much comedy on film before that. If it's not for TV series or something like that. I mean, once Dick Emery was established as a comedian, he never looked back, did he? Was he at that time a bit like Pete Murray, who was also in the film, who had been in quite a few films, but would admit himself was not the greatest actor, but then blossomed as a radio personality.
So, do you know any more radio personalities from from back in the day?
Yeah, well, there must be 1 or 2.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think he hit his comedy stride sort of 63, 64, and never looked back. And
Dick Emery was not an A-type looking film star, was he? He was short, broad, not ugly, but not handsome. So he wasn't going to go the normal route. And was he a great actor? Probably not. But he was a fantastic comedian. So once he found that, he was away.
When you're looking at things retrospectively, you can sort of see things that foreshadow their later career. And there's little moments where, like in the scene where they're about to rob the safe, there's a little kind of like standing on each other's toes, going, hey, get out of the way, and that kind of thing. And you can see almost those characters In the TV series that I used to watch as a kid, there was a character who was like a thick criminal, and his dad was Roy Kinnear, who was his thick criminal dad, and they were always kind of like just bumping into each other, and it was funny because it's a familiar face in an unfamiliar setting, and a much younger face than what I'm used to seeing as well.
Yeah, I think one comedian once said to me, "You have funny bones," and I think Dick Emery had funny bones. He was just waiting there. He was slightly comedic. You know, watching that film, I always expected him to do one of his "But you are awful" or something. You know, because that's what he was so good at. He was a funny person.
You don't have the rights to the Dick Emery TV series, do you?
No,
to put on Talking Pictures. So just running through other cast members, there's Pete Murray, who've mentioned, who is...
Is 101 still going strong?
101, is he now?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. When did you last see him?
About 6 months ago. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Does he still do the breakfast show on Radio Caroline? No, I don't suppose he does. Christina Gregg, who plays Ruth, the pretty young thing. She's also in CoverGirl Killer, which we've done before.
Oh, she's one of the models that get bumped off, is she?
Yeah.
Yes.
We did that film many episodes ago, and she now, or she certainly was then, makes YouTube videos about beauty tips for the older lady. That's what she's up to now. It's quite interesting. But I thought she's quite good. I think all the cast are quite good.
They are. I mean, whoever put them together did quite a good job, I think. I can't think of anybody that was, you know, some could have worked better than others, but it was pretty good. It was a good mix.
I really like the waiter, whose name I've not written down. That scene in the club, the Phoenix Club, which we were supposed to think of as being a seedy dive populated by criminals.
I don't think that was quite as potent as the last one. Will you please tell the bartender to make the next one with more zest in it?
That's all you're getting. You've had 3 of these already.
Oh, but I insist. I'm only just beginning to enjoy myself. I already see everything in a different light.
After 3 zombies, I'm sure you are.
I know you spent a lot of your career in Soho, and you just said in the talk we've just been watching that you went to a lot of clubs. Was that like a Soho club in the 1960s? It seems quite tame.
Well, not sort of clubs I went to.
Okay.
I mean, most villains used pubs. You know, they were in pubs, and they'd frequent one half of the bar, and you didn't go over there or whatever. No, that would have been akin to a drinking club. It was a bit of a mishmash because there were obviously girls, because there was a girl at the door,
enticing people
in. But they tended to be strip shows.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think it was a sort of a mishmash of various ideas that went into this. And I knew Soho pretty well. And I couldn't think of anywhere other than the Review Bar or somewhere like that there would be anything vaguely like that. You know, they just wouldn't.
And it's not a relocation, is it? That was obviously a set.
That was a set, yeah.
But it just seems like a fascinating world to be in, you know.
Yes.
And I think people still go to Soho for that sense of what it used to be, that sort of slightly
very much
ropey
so.
place,
I mean, there was the nearest I would have got to that club would have been a club I used to go to called the Capricorn Club in Goode Street, which was a drinking club. So you could go after when the pubs closed at 3, you could go along to the Capricorn.
Oh, daytime drinking club like the Colony Room or something.
Yeah, they went on in the evening, but of course people went. There was an exotic flavour to it. I mean, I never got too much involved in any of that, but there seemed to be girls around and things like that for those that wanted to partake of their services. I don't know if the Capricorn Clubs is probably gone now because you can drink all day anywhere, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, remember the change coming when there was no longer that closing time thing at 3 o'clock, whatever it was. Yeah. So the success of Talking Pictures TV is, you know, that's absolutely glorious. The fact that a station like that can not even just exist but thrive and become so well known, and it's kind of miraculous in a way. So you launched it in 2015, is that right?
We're 11 years old, yeah.
So how long had it been in the planning? And was it something that you had planned for a long time?
No, we planned it for about a year max.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was either going to happen or it wasn't, you know. I spent probably a year banging on doors and getting nowhere, cobbled together enough money to get it up and running, which was not enough. And we were lucky enough that we got the right idea, and it took off pretty quickly. You know, our ratings appeared quite quickly and kept climbing.
And so nuts and bolts wise, to actually broadcast a TV channel to people's TVs, do you have to go via some kind of, I know with DAB radio, they have things, multiplexes where, you know, is it a similar sort of thing to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We our output is beamed up in the air from Chiswick, the big centre at Chiswick. So it goes up in the air and then it lands wherever it's supposed to land, you know, whether it's Sky takes a feed from Chiswick or... I don't get involved in techniques, but that's basically as it goes, you know.
So do you have an outside company and you say...
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I mean, I put the schedule together on paper. Mm. It's signed off and then it goes in like a good tailor. It's cut into shape and computerized and... you know, that's it. The output's but we're all time coding and it all clicks in and or doesn't in the odd case.
I've never seen any glitches actually, to be honest.
No, we're pretty good. You know, we do jump up and down if anything happens.
A few people mentioned adverts in the audience with you back then, and you kind of shrugged in a philosophical way because. What can you do? There has to be adverts, has to be paid for.
Yeah.
I do sometimes feel like saying, okay, I'll buy one of those mattress toppers. You've been beat in submission by the mattress topper.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were one of the companies that were responsible for us surviving, you know, because they whacked in their advertising. I know we were sick to death with it, but it paid the bills.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
After all, it was only a mattress topper. We're far more sensitive about the death adverts, you know.
A lot of those, yeah.
Yeah. You know,
but that's not specific to Talking Pictures TV because I see them on. There's a few stations that run old sitcoms and things, and you see co-op funeral services.
They're certainly not down to us. They're everywhere, and it's the way it is. I mean, the whole linear television has dropped down several notches. You know, I mean, they now said that YouTube is bigger than any terrestrial TV.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
sure that's okay. Sure.
Yeah,
but I think Talking Pictures, the nostalgia element of it is pushed a lot, but also, I mean, in this podcast I've spoken to lots of kind of, you know, professors of film and, you know, academics and curators and stuff. Everybody watches Talking Pictures TV. It's not just a load of old people kind of, oh, do you remember what it was like in the olden days? There is a sort of, you know, it's archival and it's important and it's, you know, it's preserving stuff. It's not just a question of...
well, very much so. I mean, that's what we do. We do it because that's what we do. I enjoy it, more importantly. I love finding a film that's lost and restoring it and
I can think of nothing better than that.
Yeah. I mean, the one, Linda, gave me great pleasure when we found that and restored it with Carol White.
Yes, that when they... sort of teenagers.
Yeah.
And he's a bit kind of grumpy.
It's not a great film.
They go to Brighton, don't they?
They do indeed.
I love that film. Yeah.
But you know, we've all kind of been there at some time in our life. I mean, to me, she was just stunning as an actress. She had her problems, as we know, but
and Alan.
Yeah, not Bodell, but
Thingamajig.
Yeah, but him, yes. Yeah. And, you know, we played the other day, not that we restored it or found it, but we played Ray Winston's first major film the other day, when he was swimming.
Oh, yes, that summer or something.
That summer, that's it. I mean, that was lost in the American deep catalogue, you know, and I fished around and found it. Not a great film, one that should be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a particular slot, sort of 9 o'clock-ish, where they're slightly more modern, as in 30 years old, as opposed to 50 years old.
Yeah.
I find now that I'm watching stuff that I record on the Digibox because the stuff I want to watch is middle of the night or middle of the day when I can't watch them.
Yeah.
Could you explain the relationship between Renowned Films and TPTV?
Yeah.
TPTV grew out of Renowned Films, is that right to say that?
Yeah. Basically, Renowned Films or Renowned Productions, there are two Renowns. We acquire films that we own in that company and keep them separate from Talking Pictures. We bought the original Renown films, things like Scrooge, Tom Brown's School Days, which were made by Renown, that were on the corner of Old Compton Street and Wardour Street. And I bought the films, and I found out that the name Renown was available. So I thought, well, we got the films, we'll keep the name. So we registered the name in 1990 something. So we put all our films that we own into Renown Films.
And the fact that you own the films means that it's vertical integration of
trickle down
of sort of cinema chains. So the distributor and the studio and the distributor and the cinema are all the same company, basically.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to pay TPTV, don't have to pay Renown to show a film.
There's a little bit
of a transfer of money from one pot to the other.
There is, otherwise you'd be in trouble with the Inland Revenue. Otherwise, you can't just give films to another station. They'll say that's goods in kind and all sorts of things. So it's all arm's length, and a fee is paid. Yeah. So you take it from one jar in the kitchens and put it in another jar in the kitchen. It's not quite as simple as that, because Renown have got their budgets because they can't acquire unless they've got money, and Talking Pictures have got their budget because they can't overspend. So whatever they want to acquire from Renown is budgeted in as part of their spend.
Well, that's an even split on the parts.
Looks all right, doesn't it? I can hardly wait to start spending.
Let's wait until the heat blows over.
What's in here?
The dollars.
Oh, well, let's split them.
You're forgetting. They go to the old lady.
Well, why should she get them all? Supposing we wanted to go to the States.
That was the agreement. She worked out the whole plan.
Look, Frank, if we skip with it, there's nothing she can do. If she talks, she gets herself into trouble.
You'd rob your own grandmother.
Why wouldn't you?
Yes.
I have one final question, which is the long-term future for Talking Pictures TV. It seems like you're going from strength to strength in terms of viewing figures. Can you reveal any upcoming new old films?
If you're to believe Barb, linear viewing figures are just falling through the cracks. I think there's no doubt that streaming and various other things have damaged permanently linear television. I think there is a future for Talking Pictures. It won't be in the old-fashioned way. It'll be via your computer or freely or one of those situations, but there won't be any satellites or aerials in the air in 3 or 4 years' time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how. I don't have anything like Sky or Freesat. I have Freeview.
Freeview will not be able to put the programs up in the air in 3 or 4 years' time.
So is it all going to be
down the line?
So down your broadband, basically.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay. I think I'm done now. Thank you for coming on Soho Bites. It's a great pleasure. And I'll be tuning in to watch Footage Detectives as usual. Well, I don't tune in at the time. I put it on I record it and I watch it.
Time shift.
A time shift, yeah, that's what they say, yeah. I've got it on series record.
Yeah, that's it. My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Noel Cronin, for giving up your time to talk to me on that busy day in Southend. It was a pleasure to meet you, sir. And I've looked through the list of previous guests and can confirm that Noel is the first actual national treasure to appear on the show, so woo for us. At the time of recording, A Taste of Money is available to watch on Talking Pictures streaming service TPTV Encore, which I was shocked to discover some members of the audience in Southend were unaware of. It's also available to buy on DVD as part of the new box set of Danziger films. You can stop scribbling all of that down now though, because I've put links to those in the show notes, and you'll also find a link there from where you can purchase Noel's autobiography. But you're asking, what's the URL of the Soho Bites show notes? That's very simple. It's merely sohobytespodcast.com. Hello, this is what's known as a mid-roll ad. It's one of those annoying interruptions that's inserted retrospectively at just the wrong point. And the reason for it is that Soho Bites takes up hours of time every month, and I'm hoping you might be able to support the show. There are 2 ways you can do this. One is for free, and it's to leave the show a star rating or kind review. You can do that at sohobytespodcast.com/review, or if you'd like to assist financially to help cover our costs, you can do that at sohobitespodcast.com/donate. Thank you very much. Apologies for the interruption, and back to the episode. Dick Emery was one of the most recognisable faces on British TV in the 1960s and 70s, having steadily built up his career on stage and on radio throughout the 40s and 50s. As well as regularly appearing on variety bills, he'd been a regular comic turn at Soho's famous Windmill Theatre, and on radio had appeared in The Goon Show, Hancock's Half Hour and The Army Game. His TV show, The Dick Emery Show, began in 1963 and ran until 1981, regularly pulling in audiences of 17 million viewers. So he was a hugely successful comedian by any standards. He drove nice cars, lived in nice houses, and yet, according to his son, Nick, my next guest, he was unfulfilled by his film career, and his personal life was chaotic to say the least. I got together online with Nick to talk about his dad at the height of the recent heat wave, so we both had our doors and windows wide open. From my end you can hear trains and helicopters because I live in central London. At his end you can hear birdsong because he lives in the bucolic East Midlands countryside. I think it's a nice mix. I began by asking Nick Emery when he first saw A Taste of Money.
Well, when I saw it on TPTV, I didn't even know he'd made it.
Right.
It was an absolute surprise. Father and films, it's a strange old thing, really, because he wanted to do a lot of films throughout his career. I mean, he kept going on, I want to do films, I want to do films. And I knew sort of that he'd done the Goon Show film, The Muckanese Battlehorn. I didn't know that he'd done the voiceover for Yellow Submarine, or several voices in it. And he never told me. The one film I did know he certainly did was You Are Awful.
The plot of that is he's trying to get the code.
Yeah, he's trying to get the bank account number for a Swiss bank account.
That's
which
right.
Has been tattooed on a rather intimate part of four ladies' bodies. He has to find these ladies and copy down the numbers. And as a whole sort of vehicle then for him to use various characters to do that. I think he thought it would be a vehicle that it would get released in America, and from that he would get television work in America and become a comedy character actor over there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I think he was a little bit miffed that it didn't. I mean, America's notoriously hard for British comedy actors to break into. They didn't get the humour. They certainly didn't get the female impersonation side of things. That certainly didn't translate to an American humour. So I think that sort of missed the mark. But A Taste of Money just slipped under my radar completely. I forget when it was made. Was it 60, 62, 63?
1960. I think it was probably made in 1959 and came out in 1960.
Yeah.
When A Taste of Money appeared on TPTV, were you given any heads up that this film was about to be on there? Or
I think I saw it on a notification by TPTV, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. As I say, I never knew the film existed. So it was a complete and utter surprise that he'd done this film. And it was a straight role, was the other. And it was just absolute shock.
And what do you think of the film?
I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it. It had a good. I think it had a reasonably good storyline. I think it was. I mean, it's of its time because no one got away with anything, which was always the moral. If you did wrong, you eventually the law would catch up with you.
Yeah, which is a shame because I would like to have. Well, I won't spoil the ending. No. All criminals face their comeuppance. Let's just say that.
That everybody in those days did. It was a given. I thought it was quite lovely, quite nice, a lovely film. I really enjoyed it, actually, because, as I say, it was an aspect of his career which I did, that side of as straight acting was something I never knew he'd done. But, I mean, his film career was very odd. He appeared in, it was filmed with Benny Hill and Tommy Steele in, I think.
Light Up the Sky?
Light Up the Sky, that's it. And he was uncredited. He played a lorry driver.
I'm looking at IMDb now, and it says as Gunner Dick Emery.
That's it, Gunner Dick Emery. That was it.
You are awful, but I like you.
So when he came to do A Taste of Money, it took me about 20 minutes of him having been on screen for me to realise, oh, this is a completely straight role.
Yeah.
But then he had done comedy in his non-film career. He'd been at the Windmill by this stage, and he'd been on radio and stuff doing comedy. So it seems a bit odd.
The whole lead up to The Army Game and It's a Square World and all the others, everything was geared towards comedy. And for him to do a straight role is quite fascinating. I mean, there's sort of little comedic elements to it, but not many. Little bits of business.
And he's quite a sinister character as well, in a way.
Yeah, he is. It is very odd. I think that was an aspect of his career that he overlooked.
The straight work.
Straight work. The problem was really that once the TV series with the BBC started, it became fixed in his head. He had a contract with the BBC forever and ever, amen. And in fact, what he had was a contract per series. He was never solely contracted to the BBC.
His TV series lasted a long time, didn't it? I hadn't realised that it started quite so early. It was early 60s.
Yes, 63. Apparently, that was partly due to Michael Bentine, who said this man should have his own series.
Right.
Then they realised they could, did the characters, and then the Vox Pops at the beginning of the show came along.
Oh, yeah. That was a sort of signature thing, wasn't it, of the
That's right.
series?
That's right.
Excuse me, madam.
Well, that's it. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, madam. Miss. I mean, at the time, TV reporters were getting into the Vox Pop thing, interviewing the person in the street. So that became a thing, and it stayed a thing with the series right up until the last two series, where he moved away completely from that. They usually worked out that they could do the Vox Pop stuff while he was doing summer season at some place in the country, one of the seaside towns somewhere, and he used to do that.
So they weren't just outside TV Centre?
Oh, no. I mean, the favourite one when he first started doing them was Ealing Common, Twickenham, also Walton-on-Thames, because that was down the road from where he lived in Weybridge. So, yeah, I mean, they were filmed all over the place, but in the early days, they were filmed sort of around Ealing.
And from the sort of mid-60s onwards, he was a very recognisable face. I mean, that must have caused a bit of a stir to have a camera crew and Dick Emery dressed up as one of his characters.
Oh, it did. And people did stop and stare. It was very recognisable. And I think he was one of the few that did a lot of outside filming.
Oh, hello, Honker Tonk. You're in a bit of a hurry.
I'm after a man, sir.
Join the club.
No.
By the time he got to about 1980, 79, he got to the point of being so fed up with the format, because he said it's the same every time. He'd shelved Mandy.
Which one was Mandy?
She was the busty blonde. Oh, you are awful.
Oh, you're awful. Okay, the classic.
Yeah. He dropped her purely and simply because he said, I'm a 65-year-old man trying to play a coquettish young woman.
Yeah.
And it's beginning not to work. And he could see it.
Was it a bit of a gilded cage, that series?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a sort of a vicious cycle where he has success,
yes,
which then leads to him having, quite a colourful personal life, which I think we'll talk about in a bit.
Yes.
Which then makes his life kind of quite chaotic. And what's really solid about his life is this successful show, which he goes back to, and it pays well, and it affords him, light ends wages in those days were quite generous, weren't they?
Yes, I mean, he was paid very well by the BBC, but he did a lot of shows for them.
But he was never cancelled, wasn't he? Didn't he wasn't he working till the end of his days?
He was working. I mean, he did work to the end of his days. He finished the last series he did. I think it was Legacy of Murder. He finished in, I think, September 1982, but it took a lot out of him. He'd become extremely ill earlier in the year. He'd been touring Australia. He was doing a very punishing tour out there, and he got taken very ill, and they had to call the tour off, and he had to come home early. And it was his heart, basically. He was having a heart attack, and he was given an option. He either came home on a nice passenger seat on an aircraft, or he came back as freight in the hold of said aircraft. that rather concentrated the mind. But he was a workaholic. The doctor said you need to take a complete rest. Well, that was never going to happen.
What's that about? Is he just obsessive, or was it?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
he need the money, or
it was work. It was work. You never turned down work. If you got offered work, you did it. He always felt obliged to his public. He felt that, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. I never saw him be rude to an autograph hunter or when I was with him. I mean, if he had been, I wouldn't have known. But he was usually pretty, accommodating.
They're paying the bills, aren't they, really?
Absolutely. I mean, I always find it funny when people get a bit sort of iffy about giving an autograph. I mean, these people putting the bread on your plate. So that was a big driver in his life.
Dad! I've got it wrong again!
You did have quite a chaotic personal life in terms of
oh, yes.
wives and girlfriends and that kind of
yes.
thing. You are a product of marriage 3.
Marriage 3, yes. He married during the Second World War, got married in Bodmin in Cornwall. He was stationed at St Evell RAF base down there, RAF St Evell. And that marriage was fine to start with, but then due to some clerical error, his military allowance for the wife was being sent to his mother, which left his new bride, who was by that time had a child. They had a son, my elder half-brother Gilbert, sadly no more. And she wrote to him when he was based down in Cornwall and said, I'm not getting any money. I'm living on the goodwill of family, her family. And she'd been round to see my grandmother, who was absolutely didn't quite well, I don't know. My grandmother was a very strange lady, very controlling. And she denied all knowledge of receiving any money. So she wrote to father saying, you've got to do something about this. We're on the breadline. And he got into a panic. And rather than going to see the officer in charge or speak to his sergeant or whatever you do, he took a motorbike from the motor pool and rode it to London, where he dumped it, went to see his mother, got some clothes, and got a job working in a show in the West End.
So not keeping a low profile then? Because he's AWOL now, isn't he, at this stage?
Absent without leave in time of war.
Yeah.
Which sort of compounds it, which just adds to the, a little extra layer. So he's on stage in costume, full stage makeup, waiting to go on, and 2 men suddenly appear beside him. You've got to understand that father was only 5'5", so anybody of average height appeared to tower over him. Anyway, they arrived, big heavy shoes and all the rest of it, coats and hats and all the rest of it, and stood either side of him and said, Richard Gilbert Emery, aircraftsman, read out, you're nicked, son. And they marched him out of the theatre in full costume.
So he wasn't allowed to go on for his entrance?
Oh, no, he wasn't allowed to finish the show. He was just taken.
They must know the show must go on, these people.
Well, according to Stefano, he was marched out of the theatre in full stage makeup and costume, remanded at the local Nick, and then taken for court-martial, and ended up in military prison. By this time, the marriage had broken down completely, and Zelda, her name was, she came to see him in military prison saying, I want a divorce. And he happened to notice that she was smoking American cigarettes and had silk stockings.
Oh, I see. There's a giveaway.
Yeah, a bit of a giveaway. And so there was nothing for it. He had to grant her a divorce. She went to America. My elder half-brother, he grew up in America. I think he went over there in 1946 when he was about 4.
Did you know him growing up, or did you meet him later?
No. I didn't meet him till 1977. I was born in 1954, so it was a fair old time before we actually met, by which time he was married himself with a son.
Wow.
And father hadn't seen him, since he was about 4. Yeah, so that marriage went out the window. He got picked up by the RAF gang show. He was recruited by Ralph Reeder.
So this is when he's gone back into the military now?
He was in military prison and he was recruited from military prison into the gang show.
Oh, right, okay.
So he travelled round Britain on the back of a lorry the conditions they actually worked in this country were pretty appalling.
So it's not part. Is it separate from ENSA?
Oh, it was totally separate from ENSA.
Okay, interesting.
It was actually run by the RAF. ENSA, that was every night something awful.
Yeah.
They travelled all around Britain in the back of a lorry with a bucket for sanitation.
Very glamorous.
Then they would sort of arrive at an RAF camp, do a show, get back on the lorry, drive to the next RAF camp, do a show, get back on the lorry. And they just travelled around Britain doing that.
And what kind of show was it? Kind of variety type things?
It was like a Boy Scout jamboree, which is where Ralph Reeder came from, Boy Scout jamborees.
Right.
So they did every part, male and female. There were singers, there were, comedy acts, there was father as well, doing his impersonations of people. That's where the Mandy character came from, really. Vera Ginn, I think her name was.
Right.
Back then. So he toured all around Britain. And then 17 days after D-Day, they were put on a Dakota at Croydon Airport and flown to France.
Oh, right.
And then they toured at the forward air bases round Europe. As the troops advanced and set up new forward air bases, they'd go to the new forward air base and entertain troops there and then move on to the next one. I think he ended up in Italy.
There are worse ways to have the war, isn't there? I mean, he could have been...
Well, yes, but they all got very sick. They ended up with dysentery at one point. They got dysentery in Britain with this terrible sanitary arrangement in the back of a lorry. It's not very edifying. I mean, he was when the war finished, he became absolutely obsessed with cleanliness. I mean, absolutely obsessed.
Oh, indeed, yes. I had a half an hour with the bishop's wife only last week.
So we've done marriage number 1. Marriage number 2 wasn't Iris, wasn't your mum?
No. I think her name was Irene, also known as Pip. And they got married in, I think, 46, 47, something like that. But it disintegrated very quickly, I think within 6 months. I think partly because touring, and partly that it was, I think with him, a lot of the time, he became infatuated with someone as opposed to falling in love. He just, I need you in my life, I need you in my life. And then suddenly, I'm not so sure about you.
Yeah, the shine wears off.
And in this case, it did very quickly. He then met my mother in 1950. They were doing summer season together on the Isle of Wight at Ventnor at the Winter Gardens. They met, they got on well, and came back. Mum's marriage to her third husband, they were both on their third when they got together. So then it was all sweetness and light. And then I appeared on the scene in 1954.
And you lived on Shaftesbury Avenue?
We did. My mother rented a flat above what was then Philip's house. It was opposite the Free French Hospital. The building for that is still there. And she rented one of what they call service flats up the top of the building at the beginning of the Second World War, because no one wanted to live in central London and you could get a flat dirt cheap. Where I grew up for the first 6 years of my life, there was a very, very, very strong Italian community around Soho, running coffee bars and this, that. In fact, when I was very young, my dearest best friend was a boy called Pietro who didn't speak a word of English. How we ever got to become friends, God alone knows.
Kids do that, don't they? Kids just kind of get on with it. They just sort of play with each other. It's really nice.
It was great. And it was more of a village then. There was still, there were shops, there were greengrocers, butchers, there were hardware stores and things like that, not sort of artisan soap shops like there are now and stuff. And it's all changed rapidly,
So would you spend your very early days playing in the streets of Soho?
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, but Mother was working, so she employed people to look after me. I toured with her. Dad was doing his thing. He was building his career. But around the time I was born, he had begun an affair with the lady who subsequently became his fourth wife.
Right.
They had this, off-on thing. Mum knew about his womanizing ways. She'd sort of put up with it to a certain extent. And the fascinating thing was they didn't get married until 1955, after I was born, but she'd changed her name to Emery by Depot to make it look all above board. But, she was still touring. So off we went, touring around the country. So she would be doing summer season. You know, I remember going to Eastbourne one year. Another time we went to St Helier on Jersey. I think that was 1959. It was a boiling hot summer. Notable for the fact I got sunstroke very badly.
Apart from the sunstroke, it sounds quite blissful to spend your summers away.
Oh, it was. I mean, we just travelled around and it was sort of vaguely idyllic. I mean, you know, it was a very carefree life.
Then he moved on to marry his fourth wife from your mum.
Mum and Dad's marriage finished in 1962. It all got quite acrimonious towards the end. He actually left in 1962 and then went off to Cobham in Surrey and set up home down there with Vicky. And he had 2 children, Eliza and Michael, or Michael and Eliza to get them in the order of birth. I'm in touch with both of them. In fact, I went to Eliza's wedding recently.
So how was your relationship with him during this point? Did he kind of endeavour to maintain your relationship? Because I think now that would almost be a given, but I think back then it was a bit more difficult, wasn't it?
It was very difficult. I mean, the situation was very tense. My mother felt extraordinarily slighted. Dad, as I say, was building his career. You know, he's working towards this. You know, during that time, he was doing the Square Worlds. I think he was still doing the Army game occasionally. And then, you know, he got his own series, and that meant that, you know, suddenly he was doing a lot more. He was doing, you know, he was then sort of appearing in summer season as the star of the show. So things suddenly took a totally different turn. It became sort of like the fleeting visits. That'd been a pattern set down before, because when we lived in London, he was always away working. That's the curse of show business. And Mother was working too. So between the two of them, we were always ships that passed in the night. The expectation was, in those days, for me to be with my mother far more than it is now. So we didn't really sort of have holiday times together. I mean, I did go and see him when I was very young. I was taken to, I think, Bognor, where he was doing summer season. But then Mother found out that I was being looked after by Vicky, who became his 4th wife, and it sort of didn't sit well. And I think that put a block on anything further happening in that direction.
And did you like Vicky? Did you get on with her?
I didn't really get to know Vicky till a lot later in my life, because there was such a lot of animosity in the situation. I certainly at the time didn't want to know. You know, you get caught up in your parents' lives, you get, you know, and it's very difficult. I tried to keep a very neutral position as a child, which is extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same situation, really. You have to sort of not judge anybody and just tread a very careful line, don't you?
Oh, God, yes.
I was staying with my sister, and we woke up in the middle of the night to find this huge man climbing in through the window, and there was a terrible fight.
How awful. Who won?
My sister. I had to sleep in the bathroom all night.
I think it was about 1966. He was doing summer season in Weymouth. He suddenly called us down to come down and see him in Bournemouth. We'll meet at the Royal Bath Hotel. We met there, and I was sort of sent off to amuse myself while they had a big discussion. Next thing I know, we're going down to Weymouth to the house he's rented down there, and we're down in Weymouth for 2 weeks. And Mum, Dad and Father, and that was quite strange.
So he's already got together with Vicky by this stage?
Yeah, he'd married her in 1964. I think they got married on the 2nd of January. And then suddenly he was all over. It later transpired that he was asking my mother to come back.
Wow.
She said, it's too soon. I don't really want to go, because she said, I know you too well. No, it'll be different this time. It'll be different. It'll be totally different. And, you know, it was very odd time. And then we just came back at the end of it, and then he went off and did his thing. And after the summer holidays, went back to school. That was that.
So was it a trial to see if they could get back together again?
I think he wanted to try and persuade her.
Right.
The idea was, if I work on you hard enough over 2 weeks, you'll change your mind. I don't know what was going on between him and Vicky at the time. Then in 1968, I went to boarding school. And while I was at boarding school, in the first year, I had a letter out of the blue from the Piccadilly Hotel in Manchester, and 2 letters in one envelope. We're back together. And I thought, like, wow, something I'd sort of dreamt about, thinking it would be nice to have both parents, singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. And I thought, wow, this is great. Yes, we're all going to be a family again. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it marvellous? Both of them are saying it. And then I think it was about a month later, it was all off. Then it was all on again. Then it was all off. Then it was on again for a little longer. Then it was off again. I think this lasted about a year, 14 months, 5 times.
This is not good for a kid, is it?
Oh, no. And I got into a right emotional state over it. And in the end, I wrote a letter saying, leave me alone. Not in so many words.
That was the subtext.
That was the gist. That's the polite gist. And that brought the roof down, because my mother said he shouldn't have sent it. My grandmother got involved, said, how dare he say things like that to his father? And I thought, well, hang on, you're all saying, how do I feel about things? And when I do say it, you're not interested. So I sort of clammed up after that. At that point, the marriage with Vicky, I think by about in 68, was virtually over. And he was sort of flitting between my mother and then living on his own and then getting in a state. And then he met Josephine Blake, who died recently.
That was his last wife.
His last proper wife, yeah. But they'd met once before him when he was doing pantomime and she was a chorus girl. Though I don't know how much of an impression he made on her at that time. And then they started seeing each other in about 68. And I got married, I think, in 69. And then they were together for years. But that was not before he made one final bid with my mother. And he took her. By that time, he had the house in Weybridge on St. George's Hill and took her down to see that and said, if you say yes, this will all be yours. And she said, well, I'll make you an offer. And she offered to be his sort of live-in housekeeper.
Unusual.
Yeah, very unusual. And that he could have as many affairs as he liked away from home. But when he came home, he was with her.
Oh, interesting. That's
very Jilly Cooper.
Very French.
very, absolutely. So that was that. And then the next thing we know, he was supposed to come and see me. I think it was around Christmas time or middle of winter sometime, and he just got a phone call. I can't come. Where are you? Oh, I'm abroad at the moment. Well, where? West Germany. What I didn't realise, he was on honeymoon because he'd married Josephine.
Right.
My mother knew, but she hadn't told me. So he was heavily involved with Josephine from there on.
And was it a happy marriage?
I think certainly in the first days of it, I think she was tall and blonde. He had a thing, it started to have a thing about tall blonde women. They'd had a stormy courtship, no two ways about it, including a rather spectacular row in the BBC TV centre where she picked him up by the lapels of his jacket and held him against the wall and told him a few home truths and then let go.
And he slid down the wall.
And as he slid down the wall, she stormed out. Yeah, so
sounds like a keeper.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else would have gone, maybe not. No, he's as you say, he thought keeper.
Yeah.
So that was that.
But it sounds like that your mum was the one that got away, kind of thing.
It's a strange thing. I mean, my mother died in 1979, and she had a brain tumor which was operated on, but it grew back twice as quickly. And he came back, and he was absolutely devastated that she was that ill, and it really deeply, deeply affected him at that time. And he paid for all her private medical expenses for her. I think it suddenly dawned on him. She had always tried to give him a stability, and she put up with a lot from him at times. I mean, she really did. The strange thing is, I found diaries of my mother's, and every now and then there's these entries, and it just says, D visited with an exclamation mark after it. And these were when I was out at school or things like that. And there's somewhere he stayed overnight while he was married to Vicky and to Joe. She carried a flame for him throughout. She absolutely adored him. It was a bit tragic on both of things. And I think, too, that he really missed her after she died, more than he ever let on.
Everything's gone wrong in my life. Last week I had my bike pinched, the house caught fire, and the missus ran away with the rent man.
But that's terrible.
Doesn't look as if things are going to be much better this week.
Why is that?
You're standing on my toe.
Now that you're a man of a certain age too, and have had life experiences, obviously he's a very complicated character. How do you view him now?
I had a lot of problems with how I viewed him when growing up, because it was such a complex situation. It wasn't an easy childhood by any stretch. Our relationship wasn't easy. I mean, we grew up in the suburbs, and it was, it was okay, but the relationship side was difficult, very difficult. And it was only really until the end of his life that we actually managed to cobble together something that was a bit more than had been before. Though it didn't stop him once saying to me, we were in a pub garden shortly before, in September in 1982, and we're unusual to be in a pub garden with him. And he turned to me once, at one point, he said, "You're always calling me father." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because you are." And he said, "But I don't want to be. I want to be your friend. I don't want to be your father." And that sort of left me a bit stunned, because I wanted a father and he just wanted a friendship. Well, he wanted a friendship, which I think he valued friendships more than he did the responsibility of parenthood. So I've had to sort of come to terms with his, I admire greatly what he achieved, professionally. And the people who still remember him extremely fondly. And I'm not here to take anything away from that at all, because, he entertained millions of people. But I wished we'd achieved a better relationship sooner than towards the end of his life, which I think that's the great sadness of it all. But, that's the way things happen sometimes.
Thank you to Nick Emery for coming on the show to talk about his famous dad, Dick. Nick is currently recovering from knee surgery, having had his whole knee replaced. So not only did we have our first national treasure on this episode, we also had our first bionic man. Thanks also to Paul Cotgrove from the Southend Film Festival and to Sarah Cronin from TPTV for helping to facilitate my interview with Noel. You can find all the links you'll ever need about the festival and TPTV in the show notes at sohobitespodcast.com, where you'll also find details on how to support the show. And we are grateful as ever for the continued support of the Museum of Soho. Check them out at mosoho.org.uk. Soho Bites is produced by me, Dom DeLargy, and is based on an original idea by Dr. Jingen Young. I'll be taking a few weeks off now to get to grips with some other projects that are bubbling under, but we'll be back with some more Soho film-related goodness sometime in August. Until then, slop on the sun cream, slip on a hat, and bye for now.